Kari Lake has scored a massive victory. Her lawsuit is moving forward. She will have to present her evidence. But of course, the media is losing their minds. Now, this stems back, obviously, to the gubernatorial race in Arizona, for which Kari Lake says that she has the evidence that there were problems in Arizona. And we know, as presented in court, there were a lot of problems. And the question is whether or not those problems rise to the level of Kari Lake should be governor. Well, I'm being intentionally nondescript on my position because I want you to see the news story, see how they're responding to it. And I want to show you potential evidence that is being shown by Kari Lake so you can decide. I have my opinions. You should have yours. But let me show you the news and then I want to get your opinions on this. So comment below. I'm going to show you Kari Lake posted signatures. I'm going to show you Katie Hobbs' own signature verification guidelines, and then we'll have a conversation about where this court case goes. Now, I am going to give you strong opinions on how the court case is being handled, because I think the media is being disingenuous, but let's read. Newsweek says, and this one's kind of funny, Kari Lake scores huge win as Arizona election case heads to court. Failed Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake has claimed a victory in her legal challenge against the race's results, as her last standing election misconduct claim was allowed to move forward in court on Monday. Lake, who ran with Trump's endorsement, lost Arizona's latest gubernatorial race to Democrat Katie Hobbs by more than 17,000 votes, but refused to concede. She filed a lawsuit against the election results, claiming that alleged irregularities in Maricopa County stopped her from winning in the state's most populous county. Though her legal challenge was repeatedly rejected in the state, first by a judge and then by an appeals court, Lake has appealed to have her case heard in court. In March, the Arizona Supreme Court threw out 6 of 7 claims in her legal challenge by the defeated Republican nominee, but kept the case alive by ordering a trial court to conduct an additional review of the county's procedures for verifying signatures on mail-in ballots. That is to say, all this time, Kari Lake's lawsuit has been moving forward. Now, what the media has done and what the left has said is Kari Lake loses, court case thrown out. Let me explain something very simply that you need to understand in terms of the context of this case as we move forward. It is not atypical that when someone is suing someone or something, an entity, an organization, a government, that they will take as many shots as possible. They will say, we are going to list 10 counts. So let's say you get defamed. Do you simply present one count of defamation, or do you try and present as many as possible because you're hoping to get one of them through? It appears to me that's what Kari Lake's team did. They identified as many as possible, some with strong chances, some with weak, and then as the courts eliminated some remained. All in all, the analysis is Kari Lake's lawsuit advances. Once again, it is advancing. There's no reason for me to come out and be like, judge rejects Kari Lake's claims. And by the way, he's allowing it to advance. That makes no sense. How am I informing you if I headline the article or this video, Kari Lake loses in court, and then all the way at the bottom of the paragraph says, the judge is allowing the court case to move forward, but we consider this a defeat. This is the disservice the media has been doing to people. The case is scheduled to be heard 9 a.m. on Wednesday, May 17th in Maricopa County. Now, she may lose. I don't know. She may lose. On Monday, Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Peter A. Thompson, who rejected Lake's lawsuit back in December, approved one count in Lake's lawsuit. You see what they do here? It's rejected, but approved. Amazing. Regarding signature verification procedures in the county to continue in court. Look at it. Who rejected Lake's lawsuit, but approved one count and allowed it to move forward. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Lake received the news triumphantly on Twitter. She announced huge. Following Supreme Court ruling, Maricopa County judge grants Kari Lake the opportunity to expose election fraud in the court. Let's see the evidence. We're going to court. Get ready, she added in a later tweet. Political consultant Colton Duncan joined her in celebrating her result in court. I'm blown away, he wrote. Kari Lake promised the world that she would fight her election case to the bitter end and do everything in her power to expose the fraud. She's not like most politicians. She was telling the truth. Now her case goes to trial. Again, I am blown away. Well, the only thing I can say right now is I need to see the evidence as presented in court. So far, it is not resolved. So whether or not we can say anything definitively, there's been no adjudication. We are in that process. Of course, YouTube I think it was like January 17th or something of 2021, they said from now on, no more challenging the election of 2020. At that point, I think Joe Biden was like about to be inaugurated, so I get it. Now, but at the same time, there should still be a lot leeway for lawsuits or whatever. That's not anything about this, but we're currently awaiting adjudication to be finalized to see what the courts actually say. But let me just say, this is very, very interesting, and I think there's some things that we must bring up. Lake's attorneys claim that Maricopa County accepted thousands of ballots that had been previously rejected by workers for having mismatched signatures. It had first been dismissed by a lower court that said Lake had waited too long to raise the claim, but was revived by the state Supreme Court decision in March to ask the lower court to decide if there is any other reason to dismiss it. Newsweek has contacted Lake's team for comment by email. Now, I want to say, head over to youtube.com/Timcast. The latest episode of the Culture War podcast is live with Kari Lake, where we discuss a lot of things, and we only lightly touch on this stuff. So we're getting a lot of views on that podcast. I'm glad that people are checking it out. I think Kari Lake is fantastic. I think she would be an amazing VP for President Trump. However, it appears that she may be going for the Senate seat instead, which is probably easier to win, and she probably will win. I'm excited to see that happen. And then maybe, I know the DeSantis and Trump people are feuding, but maybe Trump DeSantis is the ticket. But this is interesting. The court dismissed the mismatched signatures, saying she waited too long. Huh? How do you wait too long? She filed the lawsuit immediately. What's too long? This is likely why the state Supreme Court said, what are you talking about? You waited too long. She filed after this happened and she got information. She acted within a reasonable amount of time. They then told the lower court, is there any other reason to dismiss this? Because that one ain't good enough. They said, no. Boom. Moving forward. This should get interesting. Lake will have a chance to prove whether the signature verification procedures were mishandled by Maricopa County officials and whether this affected enough votes to potentially overturn the election's result. Governor Hobbs has argued that Lake doesn't have evidence that specific mail-in ballots were illegally counted. Maricopa County officials told Newsweek the county is not commenting on litigation at this time. Well, let's take a look at where we're at and what's currently going on. Kari Lake granted new trial must prove Maricopa County ignored signature verification rules. If she can prove it, she can. If she can't, she can't. This is what the court process is for. I am not going to sit here and say Kari Lake won or did not win. I'm going to say as of right now, Katie Hobbs is the governor of Arizona. It was certified. She was approved and all that stuff. On that basis, she is the winner. In terms of the lawsuit, I'm not going to say Kari Lake is right, Katie Hobbs is right. I don't know. I'm going to let a judge decide. Now, I don't know what happens if Kari Lake provides the evidence. What do? Do they remove Hobbs from office? No idea. She got to prove it. I love how the media is responding to the news. Take a look at this. Top stories. Kari Lake's election challenge heads to trial. Well, that's a really great headline. Kari Lake scores huge win. Well, okay. Kari Lake election lawsuit moves forward. Kari Lake granted new trial. Interesting. It seems like even the leftist outlets are saying she's won so far. It's a battle, not the war. I want to show you a bit of this story. Let me see if we have these opinion pieces from a few days ago. Kari Lake election challenge shouldn't proceed, Arizona officials say. Now, why is that? Courts have dismissed most of the former TV anchor's lawsuit. On Friday, a judge heard arguments on whether or not Lake's final claim should move to trial. Attorneys representing Arizona election officials and Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs say Lake's allegations that the election was rigged is based on unsubstantiated speculation. Here's the point with this one. We know they're saying it shouldn't proceed. It's a lawsuit. Why did AP not headline this? Kari Lake presents justification for advancement of suit. Why did the headline of the article side with the left? That's what I find interesting. Now, Kari Lake claims that she had some new bombshell evidence. Apparently that was dismissed, and they're going to be moving forward instead with signature verification, which I want to get to. I want to, here we go. Oh, I got to show you this one. from AZ Central. Kari Lake gets one final chance to prove she was robbed. Don't expect much, the headline said. I wouldn't hold my breath. So why? They say Lake's attorneys claim they have evidence. I'm guessing she didn't actually read the judge's tall order. She must demonstrate at trial, pursuant to her concessions, that Maricopa County's higher-level signature reviewers conducted no signature verification or curing, and in doing so had systematically failed to materially comply with the law. This is, of course, in addition to the requirement that she prove that this alleged complete failure to conduct verification resulted in a change to the outcome of the gubernatorial election. That's actually on a tall order. Lake's attorneys claim to have evidence that shows at least 175,000 early mail-in ballots were illegally counted in a race she lost by 17,117 votes. That's not a tall order. This is because the county ignored a requirement that it verify the early ballots were signed by actual voters. Never mind that voters can verify that. To prove its point, Team Lake points to what it claims are phony signatures on ballots in the 2020 election. That'll be a non-starter given that Lake ran in 2022, not 2020. Okay. She is also relying on 3 lower-level 2022 election workers who claim they threw out anywhere from 15 to 40% of signatures, only to watch as those signatures eventually were accepted. This is the important point. Is the evidence presented publicly by Kari Lake's team, is it about 2020 or 2022? That's what I find to be interesting. Let me pull up this here tweet from Kari Lake saying, bombshell discovery. Today's Senate testimony confirms nearly 40,000 ballots illegally counted, 10% of the signatures reviewed. I think all the election deniers out there deserve an apology. The question is, are these signatures pertaining to 2022 or 2020? It looks like 2020. And that's what I think is important here. Now, you can argue that these signatures are no good, and there's still a lot to be said about what these signatures are. In this image she posted, we can see they're dated 2020, not 2022 when Kari Lake ran. So I'm interested to see what evidence she has to actually argue signatures were improperly approved. Apparently there are 3 witnesses. Let's see if that's enough. I got to be honest. That woman said, don't hold your breath. A little crass, but I'd say I await with bated breath. Let's see the evidence. I am very, very eager to see the evidence. What I can say is, if this image is correct, it looks like in 2020, there are many signatures that don't match. The question is, this is only what, 6? Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 signatures presented that appear to not match. Interestingly, this one right here, it looks like it says 88. It looks very similar to the signature up here, which looks like it just says and. The signatures don't seem to match at all. But hold on there a minute. It's an interesting thing to point out on social media. The left responded by saying that Kari Lake was doxing people. Okay, there's no names on any of these. You can't read who the names are or who the signatures are. I don't know. This is publicly available information that was posted on many news websites. I don't believe this is at all in any way doxing anybody because you can't even read what the name is. But just because there are 8 signatures does not mean there is enough evidence to suggest 17,000 would be the same way. Kari Lake is claiming they have, what was the number? 175,000? I believe that's what it was. 170. They claim they have evidence that shows 175,000 early mail-in ballots were illegally counted in a race she lost by 17,000. Perhaps the reason Kari Lake did not publish those ballots is because they are in active dispute. 2020 has been resolved. They say nothing to see here. She posts 8 signatures. If it's just 8, I'm not surprised that some slipped through the cracks. You know, a lot of people don't like Bill Barr. He said in 2020 there was fraud, but not nearly enough to have had an outcome to affected the outcome. Here's what I think. A lot of people talk about rigging and fraud, and what you need to understand about this whole narrative is that the initial narrative presented was hacked voting machines, switched voting machines, manipulation, Dominion servers, and all this other crazy stuff that I just believe is just too ridiculous. Too ridiculous. The narrative changed. As more and more of the diehard Trump supporters kept saying things like Trump will be inaugurated in March, the true election day, and none of it ever happened because that's crazy. Of course it wasn't going to happen. Many people started to say the fraud narrative wasn't actually about fraud. It was Democrat manipulation. Well, look, I'm with you. If you want to argue that the Democrats changed laws along with many Republicans to benefit themselves and hurt Donald Trump, we know that's true. I mean, there's an article in Time magazine called The Shadow Campaign to Save the Election, where they talk about how they changed rules, they made it easier for Democrats to get votes, and then they won with legal ballots. Now, many people say the signature verification thing is fraud. What I think, simply put, no, it's that the standards were not applied the way you want them to be applied. That is to say, certainly, when it comes to mail-in ballots that come in and the signatures seem irregular, there can be people who are much more lax and people who are much more strict. And if the Democrats want the Democrat to win in a Democrat district, they may look at a signature between Katie Hobbs and say, you know what? Or for Katie Hobbs' vote and say, it looks good enough for me. Then they pull up Kari Lake and they say, these seem a little suspect. And therein lies the problem. The people who are doing signature verification could be biased themselves. But that is not an issue of fraud. It's a procedural issue with human bias. You may argue it was incorrect. That's where I think the adjudication comes in. If Kari Lake can say these were not properly verified and then show a judge and the judge can look and say, yeah, that's not a signature, that doesn't match. Well, then there you go. And there's an easy way to understand. I have this document, Secretary Katie Hobbs' Signature Verification Guide, July 2020, saying, here's how you verify signatures. Take a look at these things. Type of writing. Was it cursive? Was it printed? That's questioned. Speed of writing. Was it written really fast and shaky? Could be questionable. Overall spacing. Was the spacing weird? That could be not correct. Now, why do we do signature verification? I mean, if there's no fraud ever, what's the point? It's because sometimes there is, and we're looking for it. The issue may be not that there was widespread fraud, but that when it came to normal ballots, which would be rejected, some of them legitimate ballots, biased individuals choose some yes, choose some no. If Kari Lake can show that the signature verification process was not done properly, or in essence, you could argue it wasn't done at all, because how do you determine whether it was good or bad? If someone presents two signatures, here's what might happen. Kari Lake will say, take a look at these two signatures. Her lawyers will. Do they match? A judge will say no. Then, how could someone have done a verification process if a reasonable person concludes these are not the same signature? That's it. So as USA Today says, it's a tall order to prove they didn't do it. Not really. Show the judge signatures are inherently different, and he might be like, yeah, nobody checked this. They just were pushed through. And there's witnesses claiming that's the case. I've not seen the evidence. I'm not saying it is true. I'm saying, let's see it. I got to be honest. I think in all likelihood, probably gets rejected. I really do. I'm surprised it made it this far for a variety of reasons, but we'll see. Because I think the appropriate way we handle this stuff is through the courts. And that's what we're looking at now. Considering Katie Hobbs has a guide to verifying signatures, if in any way Kari Lake can show more than 17,117 ballots did not adhere to Hobbs's own standard of signature verification, she can make the argument it was not done. Because if you take a look at this, you've got the slant of writing. It says slant of writing. Cynthia leans right. Cynthia leans left. She can argue the book says this would not be verified, yet it went through. Ergo, nobody verified these signatures. Okay. See what the judge says. I do not know that Kari Lake has the evidence. I don't. She says she does. Okay, well, then bring it in court. I don't care what your claims are. Prove it or don't. I'm looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. Spelling, of course, plays a role, how the letters are spelled. Internal spacing. Here we have size or proportions of a letter. There are so many standards. Look at this. Curve, loops, and cross points. I think we have a New York Times article. This one's fascinating. It's from October 7th, 2020. And it says 2 of these mail ballot signatures are by the same person. Which one? The point they're trying to make in this is that it's not easy. I'm looking at 11 signatures, and I have to find of them the 2 that come from the same person. Here's the issue. No person verifying a signature on a ballot is going to be looking at 11 different signatures. They're going to be looking at 2. The first, the registration for the voter. Now, of these 11, which one is the original? Give me the original and then tell me which one to compare it to, and I can do it relatively easily. Tell me to go through all of these and check the handwriting style and then determine which ones came from the same person is a much bigger task. This seems awfully manipulative. However, I'd like to point out the ease at which still a reasonable person can conclude two signatures match. Take a look at this number 4, for instance. You can see the pen stroke begins at the top. Notice the denser circular point at the top. That's where the ink is built up and they've pressed it to the page. They then draw it down, and then it looks like they start here, loop around. Actually, no, I think I'm wrong about that. This one's actually interesting in how they did it. They loop around like this. I see. They went down, then up and around, and then you can see where they start and where they stop. You can then look at all the other signatures and see which ones we can exclude. For example, number 6 is written in 2 strokes of the pen as opposed to 1. The name looks like it's realm or something like that. And you can see a number 6, it goes up and around for the R and then stops. Starts at the top again. Do any of the other signatures match that? They do not. So I'm not going to sit here and do a 20-minute analysis to try and figure out which ones. Let's just, we'll just do a cursory look. This one's got a sharp point, so I don't think that one's probably it. Sharp point, sharp point. I'm gonna make this one's a slanted R versus an upright R here. So which one could it be? That's tough. It might be. It's not 6. I don't think it's 6. 2, maybe not. And if they're using a different pen, that could be even more difficult. Perhaps it's 3 and 9. Probably not. Oh, look at that. I was right. How about that? I'm actually surprised I got that. In the 2 minutes that I was looking at this, I accurately determined which signature. I'm impressed by myself. I thought I was going to be wrong. I said going through 11 to try and figure out which ones were real. That's tough. That's a match. There you go. If I can do it and I can do it that fast, imagine a person who's going through it and actually has the time to look down and match a single signature saying base signature. Does this one match? Yes or no? It's really easy. So this will be the question. So apparently I got it right, I guess. That's okay. I find here we go, actually. Oh, it looks like they then show this one slanted to the right and this one goes up. You don't know how I was able to get this? It's because of the Katie Hobbs signature verification PDF that I was just reading. I noticed that the slant of the letters in these are the same and the other ones are all kind of different, in which case I said, it's probably these two. And there you go. A match. Good for me, I guess. Long story short, let's wrap this up. Kari Lake is going to trial. Good for her. Let's see if she can prove, her claims in court. I think there are arguments to be made about the Arizona election which show you need heavy reform in that 19-inch ballots printed on 20-inch paper caused mass chaos. And they say, oh, but it didn't have an impact. I'm sure people left. We don't know how many. How do you track that stuff? We don't want disenfranchised voters. So it doesn't matter what the number is. Fix it. As for Kari Lake, let's see. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.